Hey, I'm Megan Riley. I'm the owner of MR Gardens in Asheville, North Carolina. And today we're doing a video on swales and catchment ponds. So swales are basically a glorified ditch. We do have vegetation in it, of course, but the purpose of having it in your landscape is to catch the water running off the hillside before it causes erosion, and then also it catches the water in the landscape, so that means less watering for you. It keeps the vegetation more moist and more lush. And I got into this in graduate school in 2001, and I was able to learn in my studies in permaculture and sustainable agriculture and ecological landscaping about how to do it and the importance of it. And I was really excited about it, as many people do get excited once they learn about swales. And I was lucky enough to get a property in 2015 that's really perfect for building swales. And so we've been watching it over the years now. We did a lot of what I'm going to talk about in the video, we did in 2015 and 16 when we first did the initial grading for some of the buildings here. But I'm still continuing to touch up these swales, and at the very end you'll see one that we're still in the process of building. So of course this is something I've been wanting to do just because I'm so excited about swales, but also because since Asheville recently experienced quite a bit of destruction due to Hurricane Helene, I'm thinking that some landowners are going to be looking at their properties and wondering how they can limit some of the erosion and some of the mudslides that occurred during that time. Certainly, the destruction was so severe that, we can't touch on fixing all these issues. This is really just for kind of the backyard gardener, seeing how they can incorporate some of these pieces into the property. You might find a couple of things that are pertinent to your situation. So the first step is to get your survey, and then we're going to take a look at how the water goes down the property on the various hillsides on the property. And so this survey was taken before we built the greenhouse, and you can see that there was a poultry barn that was there when I first purchased it. And now we have a greenhouse that's in that location, and then we also had to create a new slope right around here, and we have a hoop house right there. We also put in a driveway. So because we did all of these things, it became an extra opportunity to put swales and catchment ponds to limit erosion and catch the water in the landscape. The first step is to watch the landscape during rainfall and see how the water goes down the slope. And so the highest, as we walk around today, you'll see the slope is over here on the west side, and the water goes down here behind the hoop house, and then also along the driveway into the rest of the gardens down by the primary residence. And so watching that over a period of hopefully weeks and months before you start building your swales is really important. And so this is kind of to show you that, you don't have to have a master plan. I actually gave this to my grader, and he was able to figure out what I wanted based on just this quick sketch. And we actually made a few more changes. But basically we redirected the water that was on the hillside behind the greenhouse off, and now there's a catchment pond over here. And we also put some underground pipes underneath of near the hoop house, and you'll see this in a second, and it's directed down into another catchment pond off the hillside. And then in front of the greenhouse by the driveway, I was originally going to do catchment ponds, but you'll see we decided to do one long swale that's along the driveway down here. So that's just an example of what you can do to communicate to your grader to make the process a little bit easier and make sure everything is communicated well. You want to make sure that your needs are really clear, and that you find someone who is going to be able to listen to your vision, as well as be able to incorporate what they think needs to be done. So I worked with a few people on this project, so I was able to assess kind of the pros and cons of various graders. And I was really lucky in finding Justin. He's from Madison County, North Carolina, which is a rural area. And he's lived there his whole life. He's kind of a homesteader of sorts. And he can read the land very well. He's just been out on it all his life. And I believe he also picked up some skills working with the state, if memory serves me right. And so he ended up buying his own grading equipment after working for the state, and then generally helping the community. So I think it's important to know that he wasn't necessarily doing large commercial projects or developments. So he was able to treat me with a lot of respect. He listened to what I said. He made some suggestions. He was really appreciative of the work. He gave me affordable prices, and he stuck to his estimate. And he wasn't trying to rush on to the next project. And so I think that just that amount of conscientiousness and integrity and responsibility, it transfers to the care of the land. So hopefully that will give you some clues on how to pick a grader and be able to do a project like this. Okay, so we're gonna first start with talking about a slope that's right outside the greenhouse. So this is west and this is south. And just real quickly about the passive solar greenhouse. It's a really unique design for a commercial greenhouse. It faces south to be able to capture the most heat possible. And then there's water barrels in there that collect the heat from the sun rays. And then it emits it out at nighttime, so we don't have to heat it during the winter time to be able to propagate. We can start propagating as soon as November. And we propagate actually all year long because it's also positioned so that it doesn't overheat. The sun goes above the greenhouse, so it's not too hot in summertime. And then this time of year in January, you're getting as much sun as possible because the sun is going directly into the house. And then you see it's well ventilated as well. So just a brief, it's a prominent part of the landscape, and we graded the landscape for this building as well as a hoop house you'll see behind here as well. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't get too much water into the driveway, and so Justin was able to cut in a couple of swales into the hillside right beside the greenhouse. So there's one that goes right here, and then there's another one that goes right here. And so you'll see a drastic difference between this hillside and the hillside on the back side of the greenhouse, because over there it's just a straight shot down. There's no swales over there to capture any of the water. And so over here you have a lot more lush vegetation. We did notice something on this area right here where the water was dropping right in front of the greenhouse, and so they ended up putting in a grate to be able to capture that, and then that ended up flowing into the swale that's directly it's right directly below and then ends up going into a culvert in where that blue bucket is right there. So now we're behind the greenhouse, directly behind it, still on the west side, and this is the hillside that we had to basically dig into to be able to remove the poultry barn that you saw on the survey. And so as I mentioned before, we didn't do any swales, so it is quite more of a steep slope right here, and it is a lot drier. Again, I'll try to slice in some videos or photos of what it looks like during the summertime, but things didn't establish nearly as quickly here as on the other side. But the one thing that we did that I found was really helpful is we caught the runoff as it comes down here in this little dip in the landscape right here, and it's actually just enough right here. It climbs right like this so that it doesn't actually get onto the platform where we have the hoop house over here. And so that means during Hurricane Helene, this area did not get flooded. The rain just came down here and did exactly what it's supposed to do. It traveled along here. And then it came out, goes to this culvert right here, and I'll show you where the catchment pond's on the other side of the hoop house where it went to. And then we also have some drainage built into the nursery landscape. We have some underground perforated pipe that go right around here. So considering how much we're watering here, and also again just extra protection from not getting flooded during heavy rains, all the water right around the building goes into the perforated pipe and then around, and you also see we have a catchment pond to be able to collect all that water too. So the first catchment pond goes next to the hoop house. And then the culvert on the other side comes out onto this catchment pond right here, and some cattails just found their way here. We didn't plant those, so you know they're not the most desirable plant in the world, but they serve a purpose. I really like that. We just have a natural wetland here, and when it fills up after a rain, in the summertime we'll often hear frogs and tadpoles. And then you're able to catch again the water that's on this side of the hoop house. We do have some more perforated pipe that goes along this side of the building, and then we also have this swale right here. And it's okay in this type of landscape to have it quite rough. In fact, that's going to be able to puddle the water, and so that's again just keeping it from running off onto the hillside. So it'll be going like this, and then I'll show you where it all drops out at. So we have this black pipe right here where all the pipes from perforated pipes next to the hoop house, and then also some of the drainage that I was pointing to before, it all drops down into here. Can you look down into it a little bit? And then it ends up flowing out to that catchment pond down there. Here we are in front of that front west slope that I mentioned before, and I talked about how there was a culvert in front of this little mini drive right here, and so it catches the water from this front slope, goes under this little driveway here, and then over onto the other side. So the water flows down this ditch right here. There's a little culvert right here, and we actually have some more water coming from the neighbors out of these pipes right here. And so a large amount of water comes off this hillside, because you just think about the water draining off this entire, like really up to the very top, beyond that brick house up there. We're getting all that water flow from there. And so it goes, again, underneath of this culvert. And then we'll go over here. And so this swale right here, I actually hand dug this whole thing. And it really only took me a week to do. And that includes going around and finding vegetation to be able to fill in on the berms. So I dug, and then I just put the dirt that I dug out of the ditch onto the berm. And then I found vegetation that grows quite quickly. Sometimes it was just the grass that I had removed for creating the ditch, but sometimes there's some plants already in the landscape that grow quite quickly, such as goldenrods or stinging nettle, yarrow, anything that will quickly cover up the slope. And this is quite rich soil, so you want to make sure it covers quickly, so it's not like digging out a clay area that's going to stay in place. You want to be able to establish the vegetation pretty quickly after you dig it. So you can see it goes all along the driveway here. And that ends up holding the water and making sure it drops down into the water table. And so that means that we're going to be watering our flower gardens, our vegetable gardens, our orchard a lot less because the water's actually in the landscape. And then you'll see on over here, there's a swale that goes along the other side of the garden. I actually did this part of a gardening class, so I had help of like 5 people or so to do this, and it went through pretty quickly. There was already a ditch here that goes along here because during the construction process there was a construction fence between this property and that property, and so we just basically enhanced that swale that was already in the landscape during the construction process, and then we created a catchment pond that goes right here. And again, we were able to do this as part of my mentorship programs for gardeners who are trying to get into this professionally and helping some other garden clients throughout the area. And so again, we just incorporated some of this work into our overall business, which ended up working out well. All right, I just wanted to show you the catchment pond that everything up on the hillside next to the greenhouses, it drops down over here. And something else to remember about catchment ponds is that when there is actually water sitting in there, and you can actually enhance that if you want to do kind of a thick layer of plastic there rather than just holding it with clay or a thin layer of plastic, is that when they're sitting in water, that becomes a source for wildlife, especially birds. So you can be thinking about that in your landscape about creating water sources for birds in the midst of being able to make uses of it for yourself. If you do want to capture the water to be able to use in other parts of the landscape when you're going through a drought, that's great. You just have to think about there's going to be a lot of equipment involved, pumps, pipes, all the fasteners and fittings, and so those things break. You have to make sure that they're drained during heavy freezes, and so there's pros and cons, of course. It would be nice to be able to have water sources when we are going through droughts, but for the most part we prefer here to just keep it in the landscape so that we're watering less. As I mentioned earlier, we actually are still making some fine tunements to our system here. So now we're on the property that's adjacent to the farm, and this is the primary residence of this full establishment. So we can still get these 2 slices of properties to work together. And one of the things that's been happening is during heavy rains, we'll get water coming down the pathways, the rough pathways, and you can see during the flood what happened is we had a bunch of pebbles that washed out from all that heavy rain. And we're actually in the midst of fixing that situation when the flood happened. So we can see here. You can see right here, those pebbles came off the landscape fabric. So what we're trying to do is catch the water before it gets down into the pathways. And the way we're doing that is we're first going to build a catchment pond, and this one is a little bit tricky because it's getting water from two directions. Not only is it getting the water flow from up this direction, but then as we started digging it, I realized that we're also getting it from this direction too, because that's the way that the grading is. So to make this a feasible situation where we don't have a super huge pond, what we're going to have to do is direct the water this way by angling the slope in a way so that it actually goes downhill, and when we'll actually end up passing the water over into the orchard. We're going to create another catchment pond way over here in this area. So the first step is just to widen the swale right here and make sure the grading goes down. And it's a little tricky because it's opposite of what the natural grading is. You generally want to work with it, but we're going to give it a try because that's where our pathway just happens to be to get down to the house. So now I'm standing in the spot of the future catchment pond where the water is going to be draining into, and as you can see, this area is already quite lush. These trees are quite large. We planted them and started in around 2013, and then again we did another round in 2017, 18. So yeah, quite a bit of growth in a short amount of time because the water was again collecting here. And so we're going to enhance that even more, mainly because we need a good spot to be able to catch the water. This area right here is going to be an excellent spot if we want to actually put in a heavy plastic and then pump water out, because this is just where everything ends up. So I hope you're able to get little nuggets to be able to help you as you rethink your landscape post Helene, and I hope you have as much fun in creating the swales as we did here. Thanks for watching.